One of the things that Dr. Cappy has been talking a lot about lately is the importance of the human being becoming conscious of his narcissism, and how narcissism can contribute to the destruction of a social life, to the economic life, and even to nature on this planet. You can see in this diagram here that I made, where narcissism is written, there are some examples of how it manifests itself in our social life, causing problems. In relation to trips, for example, we can detect narcissistic attitudes in people who are inside a bus or inside a car, chatting, talking, and listening to music, people who pay no attention to where they are going or to the places that they are passing through. His eyes aren't objectively focused to analyze the circumstances of the country that he's visiting, or of taking in objective data about the economy, the population, and the culture. He remains closed within his little world and his own restricted interests. In conversations, for example, the narcissist is a person who doesn't listen to what others say, doesn't dialogue. He is unable to step outside his own thoughts to listen to what other people have to say. So they keep repeating the same thing in the same tone. And with narcissistic people, there is no possibility of acquiring new knowledge or making up in relation to misunderstandings and fights. In the social life, for example, the narcissist has a huge self-reference. The narcissist is terrified, for example, of going out and being observed, or of being caught doing something wrong. When he goes out in the morning, he thinks, I wonder how my hair looks, or how the clothes that I'm wearing look, because I need to have a good presentation in public, and I wonder if I'm going to speak properly, or if everyone is as if he were the center of the world. And this also causes a lot of worry in the human being's life, in his relationships even more, because in a relationship, when the two are both narcissists, or in groups when they are all narcissists, it's similar to bubbles that are constantly in conflict with each other. That is, nobody gets on with each other, or whose aim it is to do good or have good action, as Dr. Kepi explains. Conflict is the result. And in the economic life, the narcissist manifests himself also, because each family, each human being who works exclusively for their own personal gain and what they can get, only taking from others. And this leads to a great stagnation and even death in the economic life. It's like an organism that needs to work as a whole, and each cell works for this organism, and in tune receiving and transmitting to this organism. But each cell working independently leads to atrophy. In philosophy of life, we notice this also, that the idea of the narcissist is of wanting the entire world for himself, that the universe should be at his disposal and not the other way around, or even of a greater cosmic organization. So this philosophy of life is inverted and is leading the planet Earth towards destruction. Dr. Cappy?
I would like to put up a sentence to clarify what we have discovered about what we call neurosis and even psychosis. Even related to physical illnesses, what happens exactly? Take a look at this sentence.
Mental illness is pure representation.
And with whom does this idea originate? Take a look at the philosopher who brought forth this idea.
Arthur Schopenhauer.
Arthur Schopenhauer was a 19th century thinker, and he wrote a book about the human being's attitude of representation, that the human being is always representing, acting. And Freud inspired himself in Schopenhauer, because Schopenhauer was the only thinker who presented a satisfactory answer in relation to the situation of illnesses that existed in those days, mainly of hysteria, that showed that the human being was outside reality, and nothing was to be done, only take medications. So through Schopenhauer, Freud was able to show that it is possible to take the human being out of neurosis, even out of psychosis and physical illnesses, through psychosomatic medicine. And so his work continues, and Freud talked about envy. And another author, Kreplin, who was a German psychiatrist, talked a lot about megalomania. And even the issue of narcissism, Freud had gone into this subject. So, I made this triangle to show the origin of all illnesses that afflict society. Take a look at the triangle.
The trio of all illnesses.
It's the trio that forms, not transforms. Because the trio that forms, for example, psychosis, schizophrenia mainly, and serious depression. So envy, we know that those who are envious attack others. When he is a theomaniac, he attacks God. When he is narcissistic, look down here at the bottom, he attacks everybody. And so I wrote something here for us. What is it, Claudia?
The narcissist is enchanted with his own mediocrity.
And so what is narcissism? There is a painting of Michelangelo Caravaggio. Look at the figure there. It's of a person who contemplates himself in the water. So as the myth goes, he was so enchanted with himself that he falls into the water and drowns. Now the issue of envy is better known by everyone. The issue of megalomania and theomania as well. And now I would like to bring forward this issue of narcissism as well, because it is a very negative element for all of us. Now everybody, each one of us, has narcissism, and we have envy too, as well as megalomania. So the real issue is whether or not we can control it. So our job is to bring this consciousness to people so that, being better aware of it, we can diminish its intensity. Because narcissism isn't something that a person, that women, that men think that they are incredible and that they are great speakers, are successful in society, and are able to present themselves well. It doesn't stop there. But to not cultivate the narcissism in it, because narcissism indeed leads to serious illnesses. There is a strong dose of narcissism in the schizophrenic, in the depressive, and even in other illnesses. The obsessive person, the anancastic individual, the individual who has no ethics, is very narcissistic. And I am going to show you why in a report about the types of symptoms that are linked to narcissism. Take a look now. Firstly,
signs of narcissism. The person spends more than he earns.
In society, this consumer society that we presently live in, where the individual normally is unable to pay his bills at the bank, he has a mounting credit with credit cards. He spends a lot more than he can spend, and later doesn't have the money to pay back, either to the banks or to other people. And this is because of narcissism. He is unable to control what he earns against what he spends. And secondly,
he has a superficial thought.
Because he doesn't have a door to the external world. He doesn't have an attitude of seeing what happens outside himself. He only believes in his own ideas. Let's see, thirdly.
Excessive care with his appearance.
Well, this is obvious. Fourthly.
Always undergoing plastic surgery.
Plastic surgery. And many very young people do this, even though there's no reason for it. Decrease the size of the nose, change the mouth, and use that chemical element that in fact causes skin cancer. It's dangerous to increase the size of your lips, as you probably already know. In fifth place, what do we have?
Difficulty to live with others.
Because they only talk about themselves. They only talk about what interests them. He has a limited understanding about things, and so he becomes very disagreeable. And sixthly, let's see.
They are unsuccessful artists.
The true artist is turned toward the world. He is interested in the world. If a person is very narcissistic, he isn't even aware that he isn't an artist. And seventhly, let's see.
They suffer from congenital laziness.
Eighth
They incentivate megalomania.
and ninth.
Put themselves up there with the gods.
And the observation.
Narcissism is an enormous open door to all illnesses, mainly to the mental illnesses, such as schizophrenia, depression, and paranoia.
You will note that there isn't a serious illness or an organic illness or even an emotional problem that doesn't have a strong dose of narcissism. Because narcissism is something that takes the person out of reality. It's something that makes a person lose contact with the world.